Hello, the stakes are high as the continuing Brexit debate lumbers on. Will we leave? When might we leave? Why haven't we left already? Will Northern Ireland return a majority of Brexiteers or anti-Brexiteers next week? We've 40 minutes to tackle the issue with tonight's panel of candidates. Sinn Féin's Martina Anderson, the DUP's Diane Dodds, Ulster Unionist Danny Kennedy, Colum Eastwood of the SDLP, the TUV's Jim Allister and Naomi Long from Alliance. Thank you all very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us on the programme tonight. Martina Anderson, first of all, throughout this campaign you have been claiming personal credit for putting the Irish border at the forefront of the Brexit negotiations. The truth is, that was all done by the Irish government and the former Taoiseach Enda Kenny in particular, not you. You supported the idea, of course, but you didn't put the issue on the table.
Well, I think the facts will speak for themselves, Mark. I was on the Brexit steering group, and if one will remember that the Parliament, for instance, was the first of the institutions to respond to Theresa May when she triggered Article 50. And as the lead negotiator for the left, 60 seconds before the Parliament was due to sign off on that negotiation, I refused to sign it, and only did so when we got the language that I felt reflected the needs of the people here, and that was to preserve the Good Friday Agreement in all of its parts. There'd be no hardening of the border. Let me just, if you indulge me for a minute, no hardening of the border, and the unique and special circumstances would be taken into account. We then met as the Brexit steering group the following Monday, I believe, and at that stage we had the draft conclusions on the table, the draft council conclusions on the table that was going to be given to Michel Barnier for the mandate. At that stage, the lead negotiator for the Parliament was going in to represent us, and he wouldn't go in with all of my three demands because finance was one of the issues, and obviously citizens' rights was the other. Yeah,
here's the point. Here's the point. Well, no, but you're actually coming in at a later stage. Before the referendum even happened, there was an Irish diplomatic effort to make sure that the border was at the centre of the negotiations, and the former Taoiseach Enda Kenny had been talking to Jean-Claude Juncker ages before any of what you're talking about happened.
Look, I don't dispute that those conversations taking place.
So you're overclaiming, that's my point.
Well, the point that I'm trying to explain to you, if you just let me finish this quite briefly, is on that day when the lead negotiator for the Parliament went in, we had the draft council conclusions. There was no reference to the Good Friday Agreement in all of its parts, and on my insistence, that is what we got into the council conclusions.
And the lead discussions take place in the European Council with the heads of government, Leo Varadkar, and before him Enda Kenny, not, with the greatest respect, a backbench MEP like Martina Anderson.
Well, with the greatest respect to yourself, I am not just a lead negotiator in the group, but the Brexit steering group mirrored the negotiations to the Council. The Council adopted the position of the Parliament, and that was to preserve the Good Friday Agreement in all of its parts. What we got from Enda Kenny, which was crucially important, and I could tell you the date, on the 29th of April 2017, Enda Kenny at the Council meeting came out and said, and in the statement the Council declared and sent a message to the people of Ireland, in the event of a democratic process and all of Ireland being reunified, then the whole of Ireland would remain in the EU.
Let me bring in Diane Dodds.
That was complementary to the work that we had done.
Diane Dodds, you are calling on voters to use this election as an opportunity to send a message to London and to Brussels that the Brexit vote should be respected. Tell them again is your slogan. What if voters here use this as an opportunity to tell you again that 3 years ago they voted against Brexit?
Well, can I clarify one thing? In the negotiation system, the Parliament can advise and, of course, can vote on the final process of this. But it's actually the negotiations take place between the Council, Michel Barnier and the United Kingdom.
Okay, look, that's
so
fine.
Let's clarify all of that and anyone's role therein.
Okay, well, let's move on to my question now, which is what if the voters here decide to send you a message, which is that they don't want Brexit, as they did 3 years ago, and that what they will tell you again is that actually they're going to send back 2 Remainers rather than 2 Brexiteers?
Well, of course, Mark, we'll have to see the outcome of the democratic process and will not prejudge the outcome of the democratic process. But let's be absolutely clear. The referendum result was a national vote. It wasn't a Scottish vote, a Welsh vote, an English vote or a Northern Ireland vote. It was a United Kingdom vote to leave the European Union, and we feel that that vote needs to be delivered upon. Democracy needs to be respected. The will of the people needs to be respected, and we need to deliver on Brexit. And of course, I want
Are you worried though that you could be sent a message message by voters next Thursday that actually they don't want Brexit? Voters here in Northern Ireland who will be making the decision who their 3 MPs will be in a week's time.
Mark, I'm going to repeat this again. It is the will of the United Kingdom people. It would be like saying, actually, that East Belfast voted to leave and South Belfast didn't vote to leave, and therefore we should have a difference between those two.
Yeah.
We need
you keep reminding us that 31,000 people in North Antrim voted to leave. Yes. You say it's the UK picture, but then when it suits you, you go down into the micro numbers in Northern Ireland.
Well, because
that's very convenient.
Well, because I was canvassing in North Antrim, and of course I want to appeal to those voters in North Antrim.
So if it suits your argument, it's okay.
Who voted to leave, to actually support that, to send a message to London and Brussels, and with respect to everyone else at the table here tonight,
what about those representatives?
It is only that vote that will be noticed in Brussels and London.
OK, so you won't take any notice whatsoever if 2 Remainers are returned next Thursday as opposed to 2 Brexiteers?
I am not prejudging the outcome of the democratic process.
I'm not inviting you to do that. I'm just saying it's a possibility. What about the reaction you might have from those representatives of the business community, of industry, of the third sector, who are going to be voters, who made it very clear that they think you've handled this very badly, that actually the withdrawal agreement is the least worst option, and you won't listen to them? Again,
Mark, you're putting your own spin on this kind of thing, because I've spent the last 2 days at the Balmoral show, as I do every single year.
You're going to tell me you met a farmer who told you that Brexit's a great idea?
I have been voting to, or I've been speaking to industry leaders. Yeah. I have been speaking to agri-food processors.
Were you talking to Ivor Ferguson?
I have been speaking to regular farmers who come and tell me that we need to respect the will of the people, we need to deliver on Brexit, and we need a Brexit that is good for Northern Ireland, both constitutionally and economically, and crucially for our farming industry. We do not need to prioritise borders north and south over the integrity of the United Kingdom's internal market, where we do 70%
OK,
of
so again,
you're
being selective. You don't want to talk to the president of the UFU or the chief executive of the UFU or people from the CBI?
Actually, probably, again, more than anybody else here tonight, I speak on a very regular basis to both the president of the UFU, the chief executive
Who doesn't
of the
agree with your position? He doesn't agree with your position.
He's entitled to do that, and there are many farmers who don't agree with his position.
Sure, except that he is the senior figure in that organisation. Well, OK, we'll come back to that afterwards. Danny Kennedy, you were a Remainer, of course, at the time of the referendum 3 years ago. You opposed Brexit. You now back Brexit. Would the 2016 Danny Kennedy vote for this 2019 Danny Kennedy before us tonight?
Yes, of course. Because fundamentally, Danny Kennedy is a unionist and has been a unionist.
This has got nothing to do with union. This is a vote about the European Union.
Sorry.
This is a vote about Brexit.
This is a vote that goes to the core of us remaining a full and integral part of the United Kingdom. And we as British citizens are entitled to leave the European Union because of the referendum result, because it was a national referendum. And it's very simple. It might be very difficult for you to understand that, or for those who are non-unionists, but actually there's a clue in the title of the Ulster Unionist Party. It's called Unionist.
Yeah, OK. Well, thanks very much for saying I might have difficulty understanding it. I think what I have difficulty understanding is how you seem to have shifted your position. In 2016, during the referendum campaign, you said, significantly, Northern Ireland is a net beneficiary of EU funding. Our region gets back more than we put in, and yet now you're telling us it's better to leave. What happened?
The will of the people.
So you've got no principle, you've just changed your mind because the prevailing wind has changed?
I would worry about having no principle if I were to ignore the will of the people. And I think that would be a very dangerous course of action for any politician of any political party to ignore the will of the electorate. And I think that's been a problem in the House of Commons.
OK, so Danny,
but it is not perceived as a problem.
All right, OK, so you want to implement the democratic will, and you're standing for a party which has a pro-Brexit position. What I'm asking you now, for the benefit of the viewers at home who are watching this, do you actually believe it's better for people in Northern Ireland to leave the European Union? Do you personally believe that?
As long as we leave as a full and integral part of the United Kingdom.
So what you thought 3 years ago was wrong?
Well, the people have spoken.
I'm not asking you about what the people... I'm asking what you believe. You believed 3 years ago we should remain. You now say we should leave.
It'll be much better if we take turns. The situation is, if you ask me, then I'll answer.
Well, we'll answer it. Please do, because so far you haven't.
Well, the straight answer is the people have spoken, and the people's will has to be abided by.
So you've changed your mind?
Yes.
So you now agree with the people?
Well, look, you make arguments through political causes. You take part in debates, but fundamentally, when the will of the people has been expressed so comprehensively, then we've got to move with that. And
well, you've got to change your mind. That's what you've got to do.
Everybody's open to change their minds.
Here, see if you know who said this. Outside the EU, many of these big infrastructure projects would simply not have happened because the funding would not have been made available either centrally or by our devolved administration. Savings in London will never equate to spending in Northern Ireland. Do you know who wrote that?
I do.
Yeah, it was you. It was you in June 2016.
Because I regard that as a badge of honour, because when I was Minister of Regional Development in the devolved...
You used EU money for big infrastructure projects.
And it was for the benefit of the people of Northern Ireland.
And now you want to turn your back on that.
And it built important road schemes such as the A26,
yes.
It built the A2 and it built the A8.
But now you want to turn your back on that?
No, we're not saying that. We're saying that there will be an ongoing need for infrastructural...
But you're not going to get it from Europe once you leave Europe.
But we're hopefully, if we can get Stormont re-established and working again...
That's a big hopefully at the moment.
Well, it ought to be a priority, and it certainly ought to be a priority for party leaders.
OK. Colum Eastwood, did your heart sink a little when you saw that alliance surge 2 weeks ago? You should have been in pole position to challenge the Ulster Unionists for a third seat, but now the momentum is squarely behind Alliance.
Well, Alliance did very well. They had a good election, but of course we had more votes than Alliance in that election. And the recent poll that we've just seen a couple of days ago, we're in third position.
Yeah, you had 4,000 more votes.
Well, that's more votes.
Not many more.
Well, it's more than Alliance have.
Yeah, 0.5% more, 6 seats more.
Yep, more.
And we had more than that again, too.
See, I find this interesting. Of course, Alliance had a very good election, but we are obviously in pole position to take the third seat, with all due respect to Danny. I'll tell you why, though, because people understand the benefit of the European Union. They see plaques on bridges and roads that Danny helped build and community halls right across the north. But the European Union also has a big plaque right across our peace process, and people recognise the help and support that it gave us.
OK, so people who agree with you...
We're fighting
Here's the challenge that you've got.
And I think we will, because people are telling me from all across the community that they want to vote for 2 Remainers. They want to make sure that happens, and they recognise that we're in a position to take that seat.
Well,
but we take nothing
that's
for
the
granted.
interesting bit.
That's
they may think
very
that your analysis is correct, and they may think that the EU would be better remained in, and they may think that sending back 2 Remainers would be better than sending back 2 Brexiteers. But after the local elections, they might say the SDLP's vote share was down nearly 2%, down 7 seats. Alliance was up nearly 5% and up 21 seats. Yeah, Mark, and they might say the better person to deliver that
but when I went to
is Naomi Long.
When I went to St John's Primary School in Craigan and Derry, I learnt that more votes means more votes.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm talking about a gap that's closing at tremendous speed.
From 2 weeks ago. Let's see what happens. I don't take the voters for granted. That's why I'm out fighting a very energetic, positive, pro-European campaign.
And you think you're going to do it this time?
And in every town right across it, we are fighting for those votes.
You think you're going to do it this time?
I think we can, and we're fighting for every single vote, and that's what I'm about. I am trying to get to every part of the north. I'm getting a very good response.
Colum, here's an interesting thing.
Let me tell you why I'm getting a very good response. Because people understand that we cannot be dragged out against our will. They don't like that the DUP and Jim and other people go over to London and try to pretend that people in Northern Ireland don't want to leave the European Union, because they do not. Right. They want to stay. That's
OK, so you think the momentum is with you this time, and people will vote for you rather than vote for Naomi Long. The difficulty that I have is that you said you had momentum 5 years ago. In November 2013, in this studio, you told me on this very programme, I put a bet, I'm reading directly.
I remember.
I put a bet on with you now, Mark. Alex Atwood's going to win that election. Now, the party suffered its lowest... it's not the only bet you lost, but it's an interesting one, because the party suffered its lowest ever EU election result in 2014. Now, why should anybody believe you now when you say momentum's with you this time?
Mark, just look at the numbers. In that election, we were fewer than 2,000 votes behind the Ulster Unionist Party. So, look, if you want to talk about the issues or you want to talk about numbers, I can do either all night. But what I'm telling you is the public out there want to see 2 Remainers elected. I'm in pole position to take that third seat. But even that aside, Mark, we're taking none of that for granted. I am the most pro-European, positively pro-European. I've always been pro-European. Our party has always been pro-European. I learnt that from John Hume when he taught us how important it was for nations to come together, that the European Union was a fantastic example of a peace process. It's in the DNA of our party. So if people want a positive pro-European candidate, then I'm it. If people want to look at who proposed special status, who campaigned for Remain, that's us as well.
Okay.
So we have a very strong track record in the European Union, and we will stand by that record, and we will fight for every vote, taking
we need to move on.
absolutely nothing for
All right,
granted.
okay, thank you. Jim Allister, the TUV candidate. During the last election campaign, again in the studio, you told me, and I'll quote, Brexiteers are angry that they were lied to. Brexiteers want to use every opportunity at the ballot box to express dismay at the betrayal of Brexit. And, of course, in the TUV, they have an opportunity to do that. In that election, let me just remind you, you lost more than half your seats and more than half your vote share. That was not a ringing endorsement, was it?
Fair enough. TUV lost seats outside of the Ballymena area with a disappointing result. But the European election is a particular individualistic election. It's one where we vote right across the province for individuals.
You said it was about Brexit.
Well, the last local government, of course, it was overshadowed by Brexit, but this is the election that is exclusively about Brexit.
You tried to make the last election about Brexit, and people ignored you.
This is the election in which those who do feel betrayed over Brexit, who feel that they voted for something that the government has failed to deliver, this is the election in which they have the opportunity to vote. And I invite them, of course, to vote for a Brexiteer of conviction. Such as myself, who has always believed in Brexit and always campaigned. Of course,
they could, if they wanted to, choose, convinced Brexiteers could choose to vote for Diane, Dodds or Danny Kennedy.
Yes, and I would encourage them to also vote for them, because my primary ambition in this election is to see 2 Brexiteers returned, and failing that, 2 Unionists. And by being in this election, just as in 2014, so every unionist has someone to vote for. And
but
then
it could backfire on you, couldn't it, spectacularly?
No, I don't think so. I was told that in 2009, I was told that in 2014. The effect of TUV in those elections was to increase the unionist vote because everyone had someone to vote for, and then the effect of my transfers was to push Mrs Dodds over the quota and bring Mr Nicholson above the SDLP candidate and secure 2 seats for unionism.
That is what happened
that
last time.
That was a good day's work.
No guarantee that it would happen that way this time. You could split the pro-Brexit vote. If you draw... Hang on.
You can't split a vote in a PR election.
If you just let me... You can split the vote in a...
How can you split a vote in a PR election?
Well, if you let me finish, I'll tell you. And you know very well how you can.
If you use all your preferences.
So if you draw votes away from Diane Dodds and Danny Kennedy and your voters don't transfer on down the ballot paper, you could split the vote.
You're talking nonsense, not for the first time, Mark.
I don't think I'm talking nonsense.
What I've said
and I don't think you think I am either.
I think this was meant to be a dialogue, not a monologue from you. Now, the reality is that if, and this is what I've always said, all unionists transfer totally and completely within the unionist family, you cannot split a vote. You can only maximise the vote because you have given everyone someone to vote for, and then they transfer, and that, as in 2014, maximises the vote.
I understand that, and that is one scenario. But there is another scenario which you must also be cognizant of, which is that you could weaken Danny Kennedy and hasten his exclusion if he doesn't get enough first preferences, and that could enable a Remainer to pick up
this is not Danny Kennedy's seat. This is not the seats.
Well, it is an Ulster Unionist seat.
Sorry, it's not. It's the people's seat. There are 3 seats decided by the people, and not by the BBC, by the way, but by the people.
Currently held by the Ulster Unionist
Party.
Yes, we know that.
That was the last election. That's why we have elections, to afford the people the opportunity to change.
So there's no chance that you could ensure that Danny Kennedy, or bring about a situation where the Ulster Unionist Party loses that seat?
If they lose it, they'll lose it to TUV. That'll be within the unionist family. The whole point is,
but what if they lose it to either...
Let me be very plain with you. If I did not fight this election, 2 Remainers, 2 people who voted Remain would inevitably win. It's by me fighting there's a possibility of 2 Brexiteers. If I didn't fight this election, 2 non-unionists would win.
Okay, well, we'll see later if Danny agrees with you. I suspect
they wouldn't have someone to vote for.
Danny
by
might
getting
feel
them out that we get them to transfer as the last time. Now, that may not be to your liking, that unionists transfer one to the other, but that's the consequence of affording every unionist someone to vote for.
I think you misunderstand my role in all of this. It's just to ask questions. I don't have an opinion here. It's perfectly reasonable that I should ask the questions. What about the third of unionists, by the way, who didn't apparently vote for Brexit? You're not saying that unionism is exclusively in support of Brexit, are you?
No, I'm saying that this election is primarily about the Brexit issue. I believe that most unionists who voted Remain are still unionists. The fact that we're leaving doesn't make them into Republicans, just like it didn't make Danny Kennedy into a Republican. So I believe they will still want to vote within the unionist family,
right.
And so they should, and make their choice according to their priorities, according to who they think can best represent them.
OK. Naomi Long, your party had a pretty good showing 2 weeks ago in the local elections, and Colum Eastwood's just conceded that, but you are still only sitting on 11.5% share of the vote. You're still in 5th place in the league table. The fact is, Colum Eastwood is right when he says he's in a better position to win that 3rd seat than you are.
Well, I disagree. I mean, not only did we do very well 2 weeks ago, but that surge has continued in terms of membership and in terms of momentum. And while other parties are either standing still or moving backwards, we've actually got forward momentum, and that's ultimately what wins elections, Mark. And when it comes to, for example, the issue of where we stand in terms of 11.5%, now I've sat in this studio on many occasions and been told that we would never break the 10% barrier. We're always told what we can't do, but I have said consistently, if people vote Alliance, they can get Alliance. They now know that, not just in and around Belfast, where they've always been able to do it, but right across Northern Ireland, where they were able to do it in local government elections. And the same is true in this election.
Yeah.
If they
You've
vote
changed
Alliance,
your tune,
they
though.
can get Alliance.
Yeah, but you've absolutely changed your tune. Look, I've been quoting things people said to them in the past. Let me just do exactly the same thing for you. After the referendum in 2016, you said, and I'll quote it verbatim, "We need to acknowledge that the vote across the UK was to leave the European Union. For me, that's a regrettable decision, but I acknowledge and accept it. To do otherwise would leave an electorate that was already clearly angry and disaffected, even more angry and disaffected." When did you change your mind?
I didn't change my mind because I still accept that that was the result in 2016. But the reality is that the democracy didn't stop in 2016.
So why do we need a
Democracy
confirmatory
continues.
referendum?
Because the reality of the situation is that we didn't know how people wanted to leave. And that's been the concern all along. We know 17.4 million people voted to leave. We don't know whether they were voting, we don't know what they were voting for.
So you shouldn't have said what you said in 2016.
No, I should have said that because we have
It doesn't tie in with your position
It
now.
absolutely does, Mark, because what I'm saying very clearly is that democracy has to be the prime driver in all of this. And that's why I want to see us remain. But I want to see us remain through the most democratic means possible. And that is to put it back to the electorate and allow them to make the decision. Parliament is deadlocked. I believe Brexit is a bad choice. I haven't changed my mind like Danny, who now thinks it's a good thing. I think it's still a bad thing. I thought it was a bad thing the morning after the referendum, and I will think it is a bad thing the morning after these elections. I want to see it stopped, but you've got to have a democratic process.
Whenever you call for a confirmatory referendum, you leave it out the bit about the fact that you accepted that while it was regrettable, you were resigned to the fact that that's the way people voted.
I was not resigned to that's how people voted. I accepted that was how people voted, and I accepted.
You acknowledge and accept it.
Exactly. Well, what else can you do? You can't simply deny the reality of the situation that faces you. You then have to politically respond to that, and the political response to that.
Your response is to try to change it.
If I could, yes, exactly. And that is an
so you didn't accept it.
Legitimate
Accepting
response.
It means you accept it, and
No.
it sits there and you implement
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't mean you
No.
can't say, Naomi, you cannot, in all honesty, say I accept something and then try to change it.
You can accept
that is a contradiction.
It is not. You can accept that that is the outcome and seek to change the outcome through democratic means.
You don't think you're dancing on the head of a pin here?
No, I don't. I think you're dancing on the head of a pin, with all due respect, because the reality is that accepting that something is as it is where you start from in order to create change. We sat down after the last referendum. We worked through all of the scenarios, and if you look right back at our bridges, but not borders paper, it actually made it very clear that our primary objective was to remain. We then set out a series of circumstances of how we would want Brexit to play out if that was going to happen. But we never resiled from our position that we should remain in the EU. It is right there on the front page of our paper where we said there is no good or sensible Brexit.
Right, let's move on and discuss the issue of second preferences, which are very important. Diane, let me just come to you first of all. What are you going to do as far as your second preference is concerned?
Well, first of all, can I actually just to go back to a point that was raised by Naomi? What we've got here is the Remainer mindset, where they are telling people that, you know, The 2016 referendum happened. Everyone was told they would have a vote. David Cameron said, we will enact the will of the people.
Some of us didn't vote for that referendum to even happen in the first place.
Again, well, you know, that's your issue.
And that's the view of the people of Northern
Hang on,
Ireland.
Colum. Just let Diane make her point.
That is your issue.
No, it's
but
the
the
people of
United
Northern Ireland's
Kingdom
issue, that's what they
Parliament
think.
voted to give this to the people. And what we're now hearing is, you didn't get it right.
No.
You haven't got it sorted.
No, what we're
Let's
hearing from
vote
you
again
is 3
and
years
again
after the
until
election,
you give
3
them
years
the
after
right
the referendum,
answer.
you've been in power with the
Colum,
Conservatives. You
Colum,
haven't been able
you
to implement
cannot-
it because it does not work.
Right.
It doesn't add up.
Now, I'm going to speak, Colum. What you're saying to people is, you got it wrong the first time, let's vote again, let's do it again and again until you get the right answer.
I'm saying
Colum, let's respect the will of the people
do.
and let
People
us
here.
deliver
Well,
Brexit.
what about respecting the
let's-
people?
If you said you-
What about
if you
respecting
respected
the
the will,
people
then
and the
you wouldn't be
democratic
making
Sorry,
process?
these are from 2 people who argued for 21 years, still arguing that the Good Friday Agreement and the vote of the people in the Good Friday Agreement, well, we'll just ignore that.
Right.
We never got a second
Jim, in your
referendum in
own-
it. We never asked
Jim,
for a second
in your own-
referendum.
You're the one talking
Jim,
about the will of the people.
When we joined the
Let's just
EU,
hear Jim.
when
Right.
we
In both
joined,
those
when we
referendums.
joined the
Let's hear Jim.
EU, when we joined the EU, there was a referendum. And the people accepted it. Those who lost were good losers.
No, you
then
weren't.
when,
You were
then
done
when we
before
had the
you
Brexit
complained about it.
referendum, the bad losers want another one. They want another losers referendum because they can't accept the
It's
result.
an interesting
It's like
interpretation of
school
it.
children
Jim.
in a playground saying, that isn't fair. I want to do it again.
Yes, and that is
Now,
exactly
really,
what
grow up.
that's why
You
there
had the
was a referendum in 2016, because
to be-
people didn't accept and believed that the UK should remain in the EU.
Correct.
That's why we had it.
And more than that,
And the
Jim,
people gave the answer that we should leave.
But it was a
People
reaction
here
to the
give a
original
very clear
decision
answer.
to
People
join.
know
44
that.
years
40
later.
odd years
and
later.
for 44
Okay.
years
Right.
you
Not 2
campaigned.
years later.
For 44
Yes.
years you campaigned for change after that.
Well, you
And
wait
Jim-
40 years.
I'll tell you what I'd like to do,
actually,
folks.
Jim actually said in his original pitch,
Right.
and I wrote it down, he said that it was important that we continue to have elections and not just judge them by the last one, because people deserve the opportunity to change their mind. Well, if that applies to who goes to represent them in the European Parliament for a short period of 5 years, surely that it matters when it comes to something that will make an irreversible change in our position,
Right.
not just in the EU, but
Okay,
globally.
so I want to
You
go
would
back now.
accept the
Right.
result.
Let me come back to Diane Dodds, and I want to hear from Martina in a second or two. She's been quiet for a moment or two. I asked you, Diane Dodds, will you be transferring to Danny Kennedy or to Jim Allister as your second choice? Can you give me a straight answer to that straightforward question?
Well, I am. Absolutely.
Good.
I obviously am going to say to people to vote, one, for myself as the representative of the Democratic Unionist Party. The party were in London and Brussels. They will be looking at the vote, at the message that people give, that we reject the backstop.
I'm not worried about... I'm
No.
not interested in why they would vote for you. I'm asking you who
Yes,
you will
but
transfer your second
obviously
preference onto.
I want everyone to understand why I want them to vote for me.
Yeah, we
And
do
after
understand
that,
that. It's not my question, Diane.
After that, I am very, very clear that we should transfer within the Unionist family.
Right.
I do not want to see the balance of representation in the European Parliament being anything other than what we have now.
You're not answering the question. You said you would give me an answer.
Well,
So is your second preference going to go to Danny or to Jim?
well, you know, I have said clearly to people, vote one Dodds and then transfer within the
What are you
Unionist
going to
policy.
do? Are you going to give your second
Pat
preference to
family.
Danny or to Jim?
I am going to transfer within the Unionist family.
To Danny or
And
to Jim? Why can't you... Diane,
well,
you did say you were going to give me an answer. Why can't you give me an answer?
My vote is my business, Mark. But I am also saying to
Well, people might be interested, given that you're the candidate. They might want to take their lead from you.
I am not being prescriptive.
So why can't you, just out of curiosity, why can't you answer that question? Is it because you're not on great terms with Jim because he used to be the DUP MEP and he's now fallen out with the DUP? Is it because Danny you don't think is a real Brexiteer?
I am saying to people absolutely clearly, give me your first vote to send that message to London and Brussels, and then transfer.
So you're not going to actually answer the question?
And then transfer within the Unionist family.
Right.
It is
it's a tricky one for you, isn't it? Because you did depend on Jim's transfers last time actually to get your seat.
And I am saying to transfer within the Unionist family. That way we will get 2 Unionists elected.
Okay.
And that is
Diane, let me ask you
incredibly
this.
important.
Do you not
for
know
me.
the answer to the question, or will you just not tell me?
Well, Mark, I am giving my advice that I have given I have spoken to hundreds of people over the last number of days, and I have said clearly and upfront.
You're not being clear and upfront about this. It's a simple enough question. I'll give you a last chance. Second preference to Danny or Jim?
I want 2 unionists selected, and I want
Danny, how do you feel about that? Diane Dodds can't give a straight answer to that question. You disappointed?
I have a strong sense that I'm being talked about and not being allowed to talk.
Well, here's your chance. Go ahead.
No. Look, I'm representing the Ulster Unionist Party. There are 3 seats available, and therefore it is incumbent on people, pro-union people, who believe strongly in the maintenance of the link between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom, that they transfer their votes.
Okay. We understand that. And you're stating the obvious there. Yes. Who are you going to transfer to? Who's going to get your second preference?
I'm going to transfer to other pro-union candidates.
Well, are you going to transfer to Diane or to Jim? Why is this such a difficult question?
I will transfer both to Joanne.
Who's going to get the second preference?
Well, you'll have to stand behind me in the polling station.
Okay, so explain to the viewers at home who are now looking at a second candidate refusing to answer that question. Why is that a difficult question to answer?
It is not a difficult question.
Well, then answer it.
Look, everyone is entitled to cast their vote in the manner in which they choose to do personally. And whilst it's fascinating, and it may be fascinating for Mark Carruthers and the BBC to find out who else Danny Kennedy is voting for.
Because transfers are... Danny, it's nothing to do with me. Sorry, let's just be clear. It's nothing to do with me or sport on my part. It's because people at home will want to know what the candidates think so that they can maximise the vote for whatever side of the House it happens to be, Remainers or Brexiteers. It's really that simple.
What I would say is that a vote for either Naomi or Colum isn't a vote to remain.
Right.
It's a vote for the backstop that puts a border in the REC, and as a unionist, I can't support that.
Do you know what you're going to do with your second preference?
Well, I'm hoping that the people actually don't vote for a unionist that is going to reject the backstop. I'm hoping that people will put Martina Anderson number 1.
Yes, well, your voters are unlikely to give their second preference to a unionist.
I'm not telling you who I'm going to give my number 2, 3,
okay,
4,
so why not?
But I am going to vote within the pro-Remain family. I am going to vote for progressives. I am going
are there any progressives at this table?
Absolutely. You have 2 of the progressives.
Who are the progressives at the table?
You have Colum, you have Naomi, and you have the Greens. I will be voting for the pro-Remain family. I have asked people, advocated that people vote for the pro-Remain family.
And in what order? Because that could be critical to ensuring that you get the second Remain seat.
What I would say to you is people, will assess Naomi's policies, Colum's policies, the Greens' policies, and will vote accordingly.
Right. Who do you think? Well, let me try it another way. Who do you think has a better chance of winning that third seat between Naomi and Colum?
You can try it whatever way you want. I need people to vote for me number 1. And people need to vote for me because all the arguments that you've heard here tonight, the constituency that Diane should care about the most is your own.
Right, and here's the reality, Martina. The reality is...
people who voted here to remain within the EU, who want to stay within the EU, who want the backstop to be maintained, who say that the backstop and understand it as being the least worst option.
Martina,
is something we have to build upon it.
Martina, the reality is... Okay, Danny, here's the reality. Hang on a second. The reality is, Martina, that historically...
vote for the 2 pro-Remain parties that are around this table, vote for the Greens as well, and we have got an opportunity to send a strong message
but you could actually make it easier for Colum Eastwood to win that seat tonight. But the reality is you don't want to breathe life into the SDLP project. And because you don't want to do that, you could actually risk the third seat going to a Remainer.
If I didn't want to breathe life into anything that you have advocated there, then we as a party would not have come out as strong as we have and recommended to our voters, which is probably one of the first times we're doing this, is to vote within the Remain
Well, let's
family,
hear what Colum thinks. Let's hear what Colum
families,
thinks now.
And I think that we have been very clear with our voters. I want them to vote Martina Anderson number 1.
No, you've said that. You've said that. Look, you're going to get a preference from Martina, but she won't tell us if it's 2, 3 or 4.
From me as well.
Okay, so what's the big difficulty? People at home will be baffled that you can't just spit it out.
Let me explain. I want people to vote for me number 1. I don't have enough number 1s yet to win this election, right? I need more. I need people to lend me their vote. No matter what party they normally vote for, I need them to lend me their vote to send a very clear anti-Brexit message. That's our clear pitch. but I will be voting myself right down the ballot paper for pro-Remain candidates. If I told you who was getting which preference, then that would be me prescribing to my supporters who they should vote for, and I'm not going to do that because people can make.
Do you think you're going to get support from Sinn Féin voters? Because historically the SDLP candidate hasn't got support.
That's not true. That's just not true. We get large numbers of transfers from Sinn Féin in every single election that we fight. In fact, we get transfers from right across the board, but we do get significant numbers of transfers from Sinn Féin, and I suspect that'll go.
Yeah, but you're looking for many more this time, aren't you? You need to be getting more.
We'll see how many transfers there are to actually give out as a surplus. What's most important to me is that I get enough number ones to stay in the race to make sure that we can take that second Remain seat. Because Danny, whilst he was right in 2016, is wrong now to say that he now supports what is a catastrophe waiting to happen in Brexit.
It's his right. It's his right.
It's totally Danny's right.
Absolutely.
But he predicted what would happen. He was right then. He should stick with his position, but he's entitled to have the position. But if people want a Remainer, they should vote for me.
Okay, so let me...
Sorry, Mark.
Well, quickly, Danny.
The difficulty for both Colum and Naomi is that they will not and cannot accept the result of the...
Let's not go back over that again.
No. About it. I don't accept it.
Anti-democratic.
No, I support the voters in Derry and Strabane and Armagh and Belfast and Down. They're the people I'm worried about.
The implication of that is that people were either wrong or stupid.
Well, it's also perfectly legitimate. Is it not perfectly legitimate for somebody to take an opinion that's different to yours?
Yes,
well, then there you are.
And it is perfect.
That's democracy.
And it is also perfectly acceptable that, based on the will of the people, that I can change my position.
Okay.
But that's seemingly not allowed.
No, we have to nail this nonsense because we hear it all the time. In fact, the only people we hear it from are Brexiteers. That those of us who want to remain...
Them you attack.
Because
them you look down on and say, how dare you?
Hang on, Jim.
How stupid are you that you voted to leave?
Manners cost nothing, and shouting people down doesn't win the argument. It simply irritates people who are watching.
Right.
In terms of what happens in this situation, the point is the only time I ever hear anyone saying that voters are stupid or made a mistake or any of those things is I hear it from Brexiteers. I hear it from people who want to leave. I don't disparage the voters. I respect the electorate. And that is why the fact that the last vote was tainted by dark money, by lies, that electoral law was broken. Well, you say, come on, Jim, but electoral law is there to respect the voters and to give them... Well, it isn't democracy if you break electoral law. It isn't democracy if you break electoral law.
And the truth is
that I don't think that the last vote was as fair and open and right as it should have been. But that doesn't disparage the voters, and I take exception to those.
So let me bring you back to what we have been discussing here, which is about second preferences. Can you be clear about where your second preference is going to go? My second preferences, as I have said before, will go to other pro-Remain parties, and I have said that that's what our voters should do as well. Can you tell us the order? No, I will not be telling you the order. And what's the reason for that? Well, the reason that I will not do it is twofold. The first is that I am entitled to the same privacy in the ballot box as any other voter. That is my right as an individual citizen, and I assert that right. And the second reason is because I opposed electoral pacts. I have always opposed electoral pacts. And if I give people direction as to the order to vote, that is the equivalent of forming an electoral pact, which I will not do. But I'm being very clear that people who vote for me should vote on down the paper for other pro-Remain progressive candidates, because I believe that that is the best opportunity we will have to send a strong voice and a strong message to Westminster that will contrast with what we have heard from the 10 MPs who sit in Westminster week after week and do not represent the views of the people in Northern Ireland on this issue. Okay. Let me bring Jim in here and bowl the same question to you. I haven't really made much headway, have I? But can you be clear about what you're going to do with your second preference?
Can I say this generally? The fact that you are preoccupied with prying into this matter...
well, you can answer personally or you can answer
I do have to say back
more generally.
For someone who has demonstrated in this debate how opinionated you are about these Brexit issues...
No, I really don't think I have to.
To ask you who you're going to vote for?
Don't be ridiculous.
If you're going to ask us... You know, why pry into this? My position is quite clear. I've already said it. I want the people who vote for me, number one, to then vote for all the other unionists. Now, it is their choice to put that in the order.
Because it's tricky for you, isn't it? I mean, I accept it's tricky for you. You know, is it Diane Dodds, the candidate for the party you fell out with, or is it Danny Kennedy, who you don't believe is a proper Brexiteer?
I think our listeners would have far rather had a debate on the issues of
we've covered the issues.
Brexit,
I think we've covered the issues
rather
as well.
than
Right.
your preoccupation with who's going to vote number 2
Because
and 3.
the issue is
I'm
obvious
interested-
why
I'm
the
interested
issue of what people
in
do with their
maximising
transfers
the number
is
1 vote
important, Jim.
and maximising the unionist vote and getting 2 Brexiteers stroke 2 unionists
Mark,
elected.
Okay.
That's why
Right.
I'm
Naomi?
standing, and that's the opportunity I provide.
Fair enough.
With respect, you are presuming that any of us sitting at this table can simply tell the electorate what to do and they will meekly follow. That is not how politics
Well,
works.
I certainly didn't
We
mean
have
to
have-
suggest that. I'm
no,
not
we have to
suggesting
have
that
the
for a
debate
second.
And convince.
Well, we
and
talk about the
ultimately,
European Union.
You want to sit here and influence people on other
Of course.
issues.
And
It's
I-
not
and I-
unreasonable to
and I-
assume
and
you
I
may
want-
want to
and I
influence them on
want-
that
I
issue.
do
You
want
don't want to. That's
influence-
perfectly all right.
I do want to
That's perfectly
influence them on
fine.
that. I want them to influence so that they will continue to vote for pro-Remain
Naomi,
parties.
the point is transfers are absolutely critical in this election for
First
determining
preference
who
votes
wins
are
that
also
third
critical,
seat.
and we're here to
Also
argue why
critical.
people should
Yeah.
give us their first preference
Also
votes.
critical. You've said it. Also critical. Of
But
course they
Mark-
are. First preference votes are critical, and so are the transfers.
I think
That's
that-
why it's an issue.
Mark, I think we also
it is
have a duty.
crucially
Hang on,
important.
hang on.
I mean, what we're here tonight, and I hoped we were going to be here, was to give people reasons to come out and vote, not reasons to stay at home. And I think whatever, people know I'm going to vote. I'm hoping the people will come out to vote. I'm hoping that they vote down the pro-Remain family. I think the reasons that people need to come out, and if they want to stay in the EU, if they want the backstop, if they want their security, if they want their rights, then they need to send a strong message back to Europe.
Why does it make
Because
any
the
difference
first person
who
back to
goes
Europe-
back to Brussels
because
to
the
take a
eyes
seat
of
for
the
maybe
EU
6 weeks or 2
because
months?
That's nonsense, Mark.
Isn't it-
Do you have a
isn't
crystal
it
ball?
interesting?
You don't know.
Isn't it
5 months
interesting?
or
It's perfectly
5
possible.
years. You don't know, Mark. But
Nor
I
do
can
you.
No, I don't. But I can tell you. See, in 2 months, see the work that I will do in 2 months, 2 years, 5 years will be there for all to judge and
Yes.
see.
Well, you
Isn't
want
it
to go back
interesting,
to
I
work.
think
Jim,
it's
Jim, if you win,
Isn't it interesting
Yeah.
that Sinn Féin think the Alliance Party is the same family as them?
Oh, for
Doesn't that
goodness
tell us a lot?
sake,
Catch
Jim.
yourself.
That's just what you
Honestly.
said. Vote for the Remain family. And you identify them.
Okay,
Alliance
Naomi,
and
quick response to that, and I want to hear from
Out of
Danny.
your own mouth.
I make no apology for being in favour of remaining.
That's right.
And I am proud
That's
to be
right.
in favour of remaining, and I encourage people
Right.
from right across this community, whether they're unionists, nationalists or neither,
Right,
to
Danny,
vote
I want to
for
bring Danny in
Alliance.
because I think Danny was trying to come in a moment or two ago. What did you want to say?
I simply wanted to say the direction of the discussion, I think, will not improve turnout.
Well,
Can
okay.
can I just finish this by saying, when we vote and when people out there vote, they expect what they ask for to be delivered. And that is why people are angry. That is why people are upset, because Brexit
They're
has
not
not
upset.
been delivered.
They're upset
People
that
are
it's
angry.
happening.
You're ignoring
We
They're
need
upset that
to
Brexit's
get
happening.
on
Let's have a
with
final word
delivering-
from
Everybody.
Colum.
People
Colum,
are angry.
hang on,
People are
Martina.
ignoring
We-
them.
They need to
Diane,
get
are you
on with
speaking to-
delivering
To remain.
Brexit.
Are you speaking
and
to
respecting-
anybody that I'm speaking to? Because I have been right across the north. You might have noticed the big bus. We're travelling all over the
yes.
north. I have been speaking.
Colum, you were so keen for
I've been
relevance
speaking.
that you even turned up to my
Yeah,
manifesto.
because we're
launch.
sick of
That
you going
is-
over to London
that is
and
the
undermining
most,
what people hear. You're going over to
Diane,
London and telling mistruths about what people here
Diane,
think.
the
People here
failure-
don't
Our
like
Okay.
it.
team of
We need to leave it there,
MPs
folks.
Our team of
Very all right.
MPs went
Thank
over
you very
to London
much.
and delivered $1
Okay. Well,
you
billion
delivered-
All right,
You
Diane,
have to deliver
total-
Brexit.
I'm going to
Yeah.
park the big
All
bus
Northern
at this
Ireland.
point. Thank you all very much
17.4
indeed.
million.
And that's it from The View for this week. Thanks to my guest. Join me for Sunday Politics this weekend at 11 on BBC One. For now, though, while the debate continues, from all of us, thanks for watching and bye-bye.